What is far deadlier than most people realize? Serious. Trucker here. I've had 2 blood clots in my legs from driving long distances and having my leg pressed against the corner of the seat for hours on end. One almost killed me. Apparently it's very common with truckers. You're supposed to stop and walk around every hour and a half to keep things circulating, which almost nobody does due to time constraints. The same thing happens in gaming chairs apparently. People forget to move their legs because they're so focused on the game. You don't need to worry so much if you're younger, but if you're a gamer who's a little older, please be aware. Deep vein thrombosis, DVT, is a well-documented effect of long-haul flights too, which is why pilots who fly long-haul and ultra-long-haul flights lasting more than 10 hours wear pressure socks. Passengers are advised to walk around the cabin once every few hours, with flights lasting up to 18 hours. This is a necessity. Get the blood moving. If any of these clots somehow dislodge and reach your heart, it is goodbye. MD here. Clots form in medium-sized veins, most commonly in the legs. If part of that clot breaks off, it travels up the larger veins that feed to the heart. It then enters the right side of the heart where blood is pumped to the lungs to be oxygenated. The arteries in the lung get progressively smaller the further from the heart. This is where clots can be problematic, not the heart which is a larger diameter. If the clot is large and blocks one of the larger arteries, or where it settles at the branch to both lungs, it can be fatal for 3 reasons. First, it creates extra pressure that the heart has to pump against. The right side of the heart doesn't handle pressure well like the left side, where a typical systolic pressure is 20/30 versus 120 plus of the left. Small increases in pressure can cause extra strain in the right heart leading to heart failure, severe peripheral edema, and death. Secondly, the clot can cause a lung infarction and kill off part of the lung. And lastly, it prevents oxygenation. Luckily, the vast majority of pulmonary embolisms lodge in smaller, more peripheral vessels where they only cause the latter, blocking some oxygenation and causing mild shortness of breath and chest pain. They are easily treated with blood thinners and avoiding the provoking cause. Got caught in one as a preteen. I was downstream of it where the water was only about 2.5 feet deep and decided to walk up to it and climb it. Once I got close my footing just dropped out from under me because it had eroded to be about 6 to 8 feet deep there and I got tumbled underwater until I managed to kick off the bottom of the damn thing far enough towards where the water would push me downstream instead of sucking me back in. I remember coughing up some water and throwing up some water in the shallows below it and being near too exhausted to drag myself to shore. I still can't believe they don't post more warnings or rope these death traps off. Fuck teaching children about quicksand, teach kids about these forms of population control littering rivers and streams. Oh yeah, this was an incredibly small one too. If it had been any deeper or bigger I definitely would have died. Penile fracture. If this happens to you, do not hesitate to get medical help. 12 weeks ago this happened to me. The tissue that fills with blood and makes the penis erect can fracture when impacted awkwardly, bend at 45 degrees and a huge hematoma and swelling. I went to the ED and after the poor student doctor saw it, I was rushed into hospital. I was informed if it wasn't surgically fixed it could mean necrosis and removal. The surgical procedure involved degloving the penis, removing the hematoma, stitching up the fractured tissue under the skin and then stitching the skin back on, still having nerve pain, not mention the effect it's had on our sex life. Oleander, nerium. In fact, it's one of the most common ornamental plants in Southern California, planted in people's backyards and along freeways. The only problem is it's one of the most poisonous plants in the world. Toxic compounds include nereicide, oleandricide, and saponins. My mother's friend was trying to sell her a face cream called nerium. My mom took one look at the ingredients and told the lady she was an idiot. Of course nerium fills in your wrinkles, your face is swelling from an allergic reaction. Oh god, that MLM. Old college GF got deep into it. Nerium was a huge MLM and she kept bugging me to get in on it. I'm like, it's a pyramid scheme. When they have to explain why it's not a pyramid scheme, It's a pyramid scheme. Of course, my Facebook feed was filled with all types of get rid of wrinkles, cellulite creams. I blocked her. Turns out the company has had like a billion lawsuits against it, and changed its name to ER or something. Hate these MLMs. Smoke. It's not only the fire that can kill you, and there is a very good reason you're taught to stay low escaping a fire. The smoke is a hot gas layer that can melt your face off. Edit. Since this comment has some visibility, I'm going to use it for a public safety announcement. A working smoke alarm is the single most effective fire safety tool you can have, by far. Early warning will save your life. Most fatal fires happen in the middle of the night when families are asleep. The difference between life and death are only minutes apart. If you have smoke alarms in your house, make sure they're on every level, and test them regularly. If you haven't done in a while, do it now. If you don't have smoke alarms on every level of your home, go out and buy them. Your life is worth the money. I fell into a deflashing vat of shirt buttons once when I was about 13 years old. My dad was the plant manager of a shirt button factory in Knoxville, Tennessee back in the early 1980s. He and I were there on a Saturday morning. He was doing paperwork, and I was exploring the plant. Got to the section where the deflashing tanks were and tried to lean over and scoop up a handful of buttons. Lost my balance and fell in. It was about 5-6 feet deep, but filled with plastic shirt buttons. I went all the way to the bottom. I was able to stand up and stand on the top of the mixing blades that were turned off. Took forever to get out. The buttons like squeezed me as I tried to move. Scariest moment of my life. I don't even let my kids do the whole bury me in sand at the beach thing. Terrible memories of that. I know of a dude who was being buried in sand at the beach by his family and died when the rocky layer underneath the sand shifted, opening a void into which he was sucked. Scary shit. My aunt told me this story of these kids she went to school with who loved hanging out at the gravel piles in town. They would climb them after hours on occasion because it was fun and they were young and did not know any better. It was all fun and games until the gravel shifted and one of my aunt's good friends fell into the gravel pile like quicksand. He suffocated. My aunt told me this story because I grew up on the outskirts of Houston, TX, and always thought the piles in the construction areas looked fun to climb. She is a very smart woman who taught me an important lesson when I needed it. I love you, Aunt Rena. I spent like half my childhood climbing up and playing on those giant piles of rock and dirt. It's crazy when you consider how many close calls you've probably had throughout your lifetime. Posted safety precautions. When there are signs saying something, lots ignore thinking they know better. I used to work IT for a place that makes big tractors. Different stations are restricted from using certain PPE. One day this lady was wearing the wrong gloves. Her station is only supposed to use latex. She didn't take that seriously and wore thicker reinforced gloves. She was using the lug nut machine that tightens 12 giant lugs at once. Her glove got caught and instead of ripping the fingertip off of her latex glove it ripped her thumb right the fuck off her hand. I witnessed it and her mistake haunts me to this day. They had to restrain her while two men held her hand up in the air away from her. Her wails and screams were terrifying, all because she ignored a well-placed warning. Edit. Thanks for the awards and upvotes. Never posted anything that received that much attention. Thanks for the dopamine hit. I work in a dental office and the amount of people who brush off an obsessed tooth is way too high. I have one patient who had an abscess for 4 or 5 years and never got it taken care of because it didn't hurt. It would swell up periodically. He claimed it was due to his sinus issues. Repeat over and over. Well, finally he comes in as an emergency with the entire side of his face swollen up like crazy. My boss personally called the oral surgeon to make him an appointment immediately. Ended up having 3 teeth pulled. Then this guy tries to blame it on us because we never told him about it. We had x-rays of it over the last 5 years as well as notations in his chart, along with numerous copies of referrals to a specialist to take care of it. Not my fault you don't listen. Sir, I'm very happy nothing worse happened to him, but it could have been really bad. Real black licorice root extract contains the natural sweetener glycyrrhizin, which is over 50 times sweeter than sucrose. This ingredient has various pharmaceutical properties. It acts as an expectorant, facilitating removal of mucus from the lungs by coughing, and it increases blood pressure. The latter effect can become significant with the daily consumption of 50 grams or more of licorice candy for as little as 2 weeks. Glycyrrhizin can cause potassium levels in the body to fall, triggering abnormal heart rhythms, as well as high blood pressure, edema, swelling, lethargy, and congestive heart failure in some people. Being poor? You can't afford basic healthcare, basic dental, basic decent anything, and your health pays for it. Not going to the dentist can kill you. Not being able to afford medication can kill you. Not being able to afford a day off to rest when you're feeling bad. Being broke doesn't just suck because you can't do fun stuff. Being broke sucks because you have to choose between your health and your immediate well-being. And hard work alone won't lift you out of that deadly negative cycle. Just want to throw a story out here. I am a dentist. I have a colleague who had a patient that needed a root canal. The patient put it off. He had a vacation coming up. He was going to Alaska in bush country to go hunting by himself. Now Alaska bush country means you are alone. He was dropped off and his ride wasn't going to come back to pick him up for a week or two. Well, after his ride left, the tooth he needed to get his root canal on blew up, had severe pain, and was all alone. No one to help him in the middle of nowhere. This was mid to late 90s, so no cell phone either. Well, his ride came back to pick him up, finds a dead body. The guy killed himself. He couldn't take the pain anymore. Pain was so bad he couldn't wait the 1 or 2 weeks for his ride to come back. Shot himself, left a suicide note telling his story. Moral of the story: don't put this shit off. There is no pain like tooth pain. I had my first dentist appointment at 15 because my doctor threatened to call CPS. Got my 6 front teeth removed. Fast forward 10 years of brushing to no effect, and I just got all the rest out a month ago. 4 support teeth rotted away, 90 degrees impacted molars, and only one that was worth salvaging. Take yourself to the dentist, but especially take your kids to the dentist. No one should have to go through what I did. I'm sorry to hear your story and I wish you all the best moving forward. I'm a dental assistant with my own fair share of dental issues that all stem from not getting adequate dental care when I was younger. Stories similar to yours are not uncommon, unfortunately. When you're young, it's hard to understand the importance of dental care, especially with no one guiding you. Help kids help themselves. Exploring abandoned places. When I was a kid, I would do it all the time and take photos without any form of facial protection. Fast forward years later and I learn about how toxic certain molds can be. How many older buildings used materials like asbestos, which can be in the air when places are left to rot, etc. At this point, I just thank God I never had to deal with the aftermath of any of that. Also, to anyone who enjoys doing this, I get it. I just want to bring awareness to the fact that if you participate, respirator and goggles should be a must. Also, as a side note, be wary of scrappers and individuals looking for a place to do drugs. Had a run-in like that during one of the last excursions I made, and it's not fun. Touch screen consoles in cars. Mazda now disables touch functionality in their vehicles because they found that when drivers interact with the touch screen, they drift the vehicle to the right, taking your eyes off the road to press 3 buttons in 3 different positions on the touch screen, with a latency each time you press a button, because your seat heaters are literally burning your ass while trying to maintain control of the vehicle during freeway traffic is goddamn dangerous. Vacation, particularly in nature if you're not used to being in nature. There's a book called Death in Yellowstone and talks about all the weird ways people have died there, walking off cliffs, falling trees, falling into boiling water. There's the obvious wildlife attacks, but there's plenty of less obvious ways. The thing is, people are relaxing for once on vacation and they put themselves in different environments than they're used to. They have their guards down. Windows. It's easy to think they're more secure than they actually are. which is especially dangerous in taller buildings. Falling through a broken window has a very high risk of a major laceration. Broken glass on the floor can again mess your body up spectacularly, and on certain surfaces it's really hard to spot even moderately sized razor-sharp pieces. Edit LPT for those living in areas that are earthquake-prone. Keep a pair of slippers or sandals by your bedside. If there is an earthquake during the night, the chances are you will have picture frames that fell and shattered around your home, and you should have something hard-soled to walk on in that situation. Edit 2. Be a thoughtful human. If you break something made from glass, don't just toss the broken glass. Put it into a cardboard box, tape it so it's sealed, and write broken glass on the box. My parents used layers of newspaper and tape it up. You have no idea who might handle the bag with your rubbish in. Deer. Over 120 people a year die from deer directly, and another 175 to 200 from car accidents caused by deer, with some 10,000 injuries, and more deaths and injuries related to deer hunting. By the way, deer are pretty mean and terrible parents. I have seen a deer push her fawn ahead of her near the food, to see if there is a predator. Then, if the fawn is okay, go out and hit the fawn to get at the food herself. Quitting antidepressants cold turkey after regular use. P.S. Did cold turkey Prozac, olanzapine. Right now tapering Lexapro escitalopram from 20 mg to 2.5 mg now. And worst evil cold turkey of all time awards goes to benzodiazepines and pregabalin. Lyrica. Took clonazepam always. Quitting these medicines cold turkey 99% of the time gives you a seizure. I had two. But guess what? I'm already epileptic, so more seizures yay. Thank you for awards and upvotes. Peace. People saying taking antidepressants at first place is bad for you. No, it's not. It saved my life. I didn't know I had depression, but I stopped eating, had extreme stomach issues, gas, acid reflux etc. Lost 15 kilograms weight in 30 days, stopped eating at all. I have seen 5 gastroenterologists, so many tests like endoscopy, colonoscopy, liver function, blood, stools etc. Everything was normal. Suffered whole year. I was close to death. Then I was recommended a psychiatrist. She told I have somatization. Meds started working from day first. I felt happy and started to eat. Gained all that weight back in again 1 month. That weight losing and gaining thing was like some Christian Bale thing. Haha. This is why throwing a punch is such a potential life changer. It's not the punch, but the fall where someone bangs their head just the right way and now you're up on a murder charge cause buddy scuffed your pumas. When I was a graduate student I visited a prison as part of my dissertation research and spoke to a 45-year-old man who was sentenced to life for punching someone in a bar fight when he was 19. The guy he punched hit a table on the way down and died. And that's it. Rest of his life in prison. Horses. They weigh 1,200 pounds. They're extremely jittery, and they can crush you or kick you to death on accident. And that's just horses in general. Stallions will try to hurt you just to assert dominance. And these are animals that have been known to bite each other's throats out when they fight. Don't mess with horses unless you know what you're doing. Always be careful, even if you do. A friend of mine from school always had horses, and was a truly excellent rider. She lived her life around horses, rode competitively. The whole deal. 1 year out of school, we heard she died, got kicked in the chest. I believe attempting to get a nervous horse out of the float. So absolutely sad and definitely reinforced for me how much care to take. I'm also reminded of a relief teacher we had missing a finger, apparently bitten by a horse when she was younger. Had to redo ours recently. They're big and really tightly wound. They're designed to hold a majority of the weight so the motor doesn't have to be monstrous. But resetting, changing them requires unwinding them turn by hand, which is a full 85 kilograms body weight, with leverage. Job. If you aren't really careful you lose control and they'll break you with your lever tool. I consider myself pretty handy and mechanically inclined. I was just making an adjustment to save the $120 service charge and the spring let loose. Ripped the wrench out of my hand, smacked me in the fingers with it twice and then threw it across the garage and into the drywall like a goddamn throwing knife. I broke 2 fingers and paid the $120 happily.